Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jay, and today I want to have a conversation with you that is a little difficult, but it's incredibly important. I uploaded the video about what items not to buy at the grocery store, and I threw around words like preservatives and chemicals, and I didn't really expand on that or really explain exactly what those things meant, and I think it's worth some clarification. Also, it's very important to me that you understand why you're at my channel, because it's more to me than just posting up, how to make something from scratch or how to make something that you would normally buy at the grocery store. I really want you to understand the why, and I want you to understand why it's so important to me to make this content in the first place, because if you ask me, the why is just as important as the how. And so I really wanted to kind of talk about that. I have a lot of notes here. I spent hours researching this because I want to speak on this well. So you are going to see me reference my notebook quite a bit because it's too broad for me to remember all of the details. So I have everything written here. And I hope that you come out of this feeling inspired and motivated and not afraid, because it can be very scary. This is a huge topic and it can be kind of hard to wrap your brain around. But I want to talk about the food system, but I want to talk about it from the viewpoint of us as the consumer. So that's kind of how I've written this. And I want to start first with some of the big problem-causing practices that we don't really see or hear about. The first one being monoculture farming. Monoculture farming is where one product is being grown at a time on a mass scale. And this is decreasing not only the nutrients in the soil over time, but over time, it's also decreasing the nutrients that are in the actual food that we're consuming. Also, pesticides are being heavily used in both monoculture farming as well as big ag practices to keep the crop yields high. Glyphosate is the active ingredient found in Roundup, and that chemical is being found regularly in the food products that we are consuming. And glyphosate is known to cause cancer, it's a known hormone disruptor, and it's causing damage both in the systems in the soil as well as our digestive system. 60% of US land being used for crops is being used for commodity crops, the top 5 of which are corn, sugars, wheat, soy, and potatoes. And all of those products are used in highly processed foods. So about 60% of the foods that we're seeing in the grocery store are coming from those products and are highly processed, because that is what is affordable for these companies creating this food. These big commodity crops that are being produced in monoculture farming practices and have the pesticides are more easily produced because of those methods and are then cheaper to produce those highly processed foods. That's all behind the scenes stuff. And honestly, that just barely even scratches the surface of the behind the scenes stuff. We didn't even talk about fertilizers. We didn't talk about any animal practices, because honestly, animal practices could be its own video. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't even see or hear about. But I want to talk about what us as the consumer do see. And I want you to understand that we are not being given all of the facts of where our food is coming from or how it's being produced. And why would we be? Your box of cereal is not going to say made with sugar from a monoculture farm using cancer-causing pesticides. Nobody would buy it. Instead, we are fed a narrative in the form of marketing, using misleading verbiage, pretty colors, and convincing photographs to basically trick us. Those Nutri-Grain bars with the pretty picture of the bright red plump strawberry don't alert you to the presence of soybean oil in that product. And this is usually enough to throw consumers off their trail. They use buzzwords like natural, superfood, made with real fruit. Natural and superfood don't even have strict guidelines with the FDA. Very loose guidelines, very easy to find loopholes. And made with real fruit that doesn't actually mean anything. It doesn't tell you how the fruit was made or where it came from, and it doesn't touch on any of the other ingredients in that product. And then you have companies on the other side of the marketing spectrum using fear-mongering to try and sell their products, using statements like no artificial preservatives, no added chemicals. Both preservatives and chemicals can be helpful and safe and actually beneficial to the food, but the packaging is pointing out that there aren't any, so they must be bad, right? Preservatives can refer to anything like vitamins, minerals, thickeners, stabilizers, not to mention how easily the word chemical is thrown around, considering everything is a chemical. I looked up the definition of chemical, and it's just any substance that has a defined composition. That's literally everything. Water is a chemical. Water has a defined composition. So the term no toxic chemicals found on a lot of cleaning supplies is actually very misleading, because it's not the chemical itself often that's toxic, it's the amount of chemical present. It's the dosage of the chemical that's toxic. Water, for example, in too high a dosage can be toxic. But the phrase no toxic chemicals is eye-catching and reassuring, so it's used on these products to try to sell them to us. So it's hard because marketing is going out of their way to mislead us and to kind of catch us with these buzzwords, and they're skewing what these words even mean. So we don't have any real guidance coming from the companies selling these products and marketing these products in the first place. But for me, what is most important to point out to you guys, all that information that I just gave you is, kind of behind the scenes stuff and pointing out to you how we're being misled. But the point is, the fact of the matter is, these products that we're being tricked into consuming are making us sick. They're incredibly dangerous for the consumer. When I was doing my research, I have the sources down in the description, by the way, for a lot of these facts that I found. When I was doing this research, I was seeing the phrase fast food genocide being used, and that really shook me. That terrified me, because that's what it is, and that's hard for me to wrap my head around. That is awful that fast food genocide can apply to what's happening today. It's 2020 still as I'm filming this, and that just blows my mind. The incredibly high amount of processed food, fast food, food grown using pesticides, refined carbohydrates, saturated fat, excess sugar, etc., being found in the products that we are consuming is leading to things like autoimmune diseases, inflammatory disorders, digestive disorders, diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, dementia, cancer, kidney failure, and there's more. The list went on and on throughout the different sources based on what specifically we were looking at. It's incredibly cyclical, and the thing that's so incredibly hard for me to swallow, and why I feel so passionately about making this video, is that so many people don't know. We are taught from very early on that cigarettes are bad for us. Everybody knows that. Cigarettes lead to lung cancer. That is well known throughout every household. You still have people who choose to smoke them, but that's their choice. They're making an informed decision. But the single mom of 3 kids who just put the Hostess product in her grocery shopping cart likely doesn't know that it's laden with high fructose corn syrup. She's just trying to do the best she can. She's busy, she's tired, she's distracted, and all she knows is that the fruit pie that she just put in her cart has a picture of an apple on it. And if I'm being honest with you, ignorance is bliss until we have the capacity to do something about it. Even if one of her coworkers had mentioned to her one time that high fructose corn syrup is bad and that it's in a lot of products marketed for children, she might know that, But when she has the kids in the grocery shopping cart and she's trying to get food and she just worked a 10-hour shift, do you really think that she's gonna stop and read that ingredient label and has the mental capacity to see that it has high fructose corn syrup, do the research to figure out that it's bad, and then do the research to figure out what the healthy alternative to high fructose corn syrup is? We're set up to fail. This system is so difficult to escape, and that's why it's so overwhelming to people. And that's why right there, the marketing is what throws people off the scent, because to go beyond that takes intention and effort. And a lot of people, honestly, just don't have the capacity for it. I was like that. It wasn't until I graduated college and started earning a steady income that I was like, okay, I can finally kind of sit down and research that. Because before, I was eating McDonald's with the best of them. And I was ignoring that nagging feeling in my stomach that something wasn't right because I didn't have the capacity to do anything about it. I wasn't at a place in my life yet where I could say, okay, I have the time and the money to put towards making better decisions. And that's another way that us as the consumer are being taken advantage of. We're busy, we're stressed out, we're anxious enough at it as it is, and now we're supposed to read ingredient labels. Oh, and the healthy alternative that my grocery store offers costs how much? And it's hard because I don't want to do any fear mongering. I don't want that to ever be what this channel is, but it's so hard not to, because one fact rolls into another fact, rolls into another fact, until my head is spinning and I honestly just want to leave planet Earth and start over again, because how can we tackle this? Trust me, I get it. And you know, this isn't something that I've ever talked about on this channel before. And honestly, as I'm bringing it up right now with my camera recording, I have butterflies. But, you know, Tom and I have been together for almost 6 years now, and we don't have any children. I'm going to be really honest with you. It's partly because of this. This is something that I have a very difficult time getting past or putting out of my head. I have a hard enough time as it is putting healthy, nourishing food that's doing Tom and I more good than harm on the dinner table. It's hard enough to do that, let alone to bring a child into this household. And I already know, because it already happens with Tom, that the day that I'm stressed and overwhelmed and I have to hand that kid a Nutri-Grain bar, I'm gonna feel terrible. And it's going to cause me stress and guilt, because I do it with Tom. If there's a day where I'm too busy and I can't really make him like a nutritious meal, and instead I'm handing him something that is processed or not as healthy, I feel bad. I feel like I'm failing, like I'm doing a bad job. So if I already am barely managing it with myself and my husband, how can I bring children into it? You know what I mean? And that's hard for me. That's very, very difficult for me. So the fear mongering applies to me too. I'm scared. I'm anxious about this. I want to do better. So that's a huge reason why I made this channel in the first place, because I did get to a place in my life where I was ready to start tackling this. And there are steps that we can take to slowly start tackling this. We cannot tackle the entire system. It's too big. It's generations in the making. And it would take just as long to reverse the damage that's already been done. So don't look at the big picture. Don't try to tackle the big picture. It's just going to stress you out. And if you do decide to do any independent research outside of what we've talked about here today, don't let it stress you out, because you alone cannot tackle the pesticides being used on the food that's being grown up through big ag. What are you going to do? You can't. It's impossible. So instead of letting it stress you out, you can make choices and chip away at it a little bit at a time for yourself and your family. If your kids like to eat granola, make it yourself. You can't quite tackle a garden yet, but it's the summertime and you have a craving for corn, go to your local farmer's market and support somebody who's doing these things locally on a smaller scale. you want better alternatives, but you're not finding them at your grocery store, shop with reputable companies like Azure Standard and ButcherBox, for example. Or better yet, look and see if some of these products are being produced locally, and support local as often as you can. And believe me, I completely understand. It is expensive. The grass-fed butter that I just bought to store in my freezer, it was expensive. But you can make small decisions a little bit at a time, and every step that you make in that right direction is one step further away from all of the things that we've talked about in this video. And that's what I want this channel to be. I want to help you feel confident and feel like you can tackle these things. And it doesn't have to always be very expensive. If you break down a lot of the things you consume into their raw, whole ingredients and start there, it can be very affordable. Sometimes it can be a little expensive up front. Like I have an Azure order coming in January, and I bought 55 pounds of flour, and it was decently expensive, but I'm going to have that flour for a long time, and I'll be able to use it to create a lot of products for my household. So, you know, it's all in how you look at it. You know, you buy one big 55 pound bag of flour, you're not having to buy the smaller bags of flour over time. So usually you can break it down and make it pretty reasonable and justify it. But if you make these choices and you start making your own granola and you start buying the grass-fed butter and you start keeping flour and sugar and vanilla extract on hand and etc., other things on hand, then you will be able to slowly start implementing these things. It takes time and it takes effort and it does take some money, but it all comes down to is it worth it? And if you're still watching this video, then obviously you care and you're interested in this, and you probably, like me, are a little bit scared, because what it breaks down to for me in terms of being the woman where I feel responsible for my household, my health, my husband's health, and the health of any future children that I have is more or less my responsibility. Tom also has the ability to make good choices, but I, for the most part, make all of his meals. So in my mind, it's my responsibility. Same with any future children. I'm gonna be the one making their meals, so it's my responsibility. And I want to do right by them. I want to do a good job. And that's why it's so hard for me when I think about having children, because why would I if I'm not in a place yet to do right by them and to do a good job? And I know many of you may not agree with that, but it's where I'm at. It's my thought process, and it's my choice to make, mine and Tom's. And that's how I look at it. It's very, very difficult. Once you know and you're aware of these things, it's really hard to ignore them. And to see the health impact that it's having, not even just on physical health, but on mental health, because your digestive system is directly linked to your brain. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this generation is so incredibly anxious and depressed and have so many mental health issues when we've grown up on the highly processed food that's been around for generations now. Not only did our parents eat it, but our grandparents ate it. So here we are, 2 generations removed from people eating these highly processed foods, and we're sick, we're depressed, we're anxious, and we don't have the energy a lot of times to tackle these things. I don't want to get too carried away with it, but to me personally, it's not a coincidence, and it's up to us now to change that narrative. If you don't want that to be true for you and for your kids and your grandkids, it starts with you, and it starts with the decisions that you're making in your kitchen, in your home, in your local grocery store, in your local community. You have the power, but you need to go into it with intention. And you need to go into it knowing that you're gonna have to put in a little bit more work. Because obviously, having the garden, taking the time every night to make the homemade meal using the produce and the well-sourced items, that's gonna take a whole lot more time and intention on your part than taking the whole fam through the McDonald's drive-thru. It just, plain and simple, it is. But when something is worth doing, it's not always going to be easy. And at least at the end of the day, you can rest assured and sleep well knowing that that specific effort and work that you put in was for a good reason and had a positive impact. So I suppose that's all. Honestly, we could talk about this for days. There's so much information and there are so many facets that we could explore in this topic, and I don't want to overwhelm or be the cause of any more fear mongering than I've already been today. But I just want you to understand that there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that we as the consumer are not privy to. They're not going out of their way to tell us these things. They're not even going out of their way to make it easy for us to figure it out. It was hours of research, numerous different articles for me to piece together the picture that I just painted for you in this video. But once you are kind of aware that these things are happening, I want to be a resource for you. And there are so many other people out there who are good resources for you to start making those changes. And I just wanted you to understand that when you're on my channel and you're watching my content, this is why I'm creating it. I'm creating it because I want to provide people with alternatives, and I want to help you build the confidence that you need to tackle these things. Because when you look at the big picture, it's really easy to go, I can't, it's too much. What's the point? I can't conquer this. It's all too much. And it is all too much. It is overwhelming, but you can start chipping away at it. Every single person watching this right now has the ability to make small changes and take small steps towards a better, healthier life for yourself, for your family, for your household. You have the power and the ability to do it if you just start taking those small steps. And those small steps are found in my videos: making your own homemade granola, making meals from scratch, growing a garden, growing your own herbs. There's a plethora of information out there on how to tackle this. So I hope that you'll check out some of my other videos to help start you along this journey. I'll link some of the ones that I think are really beneficial at the end of this video. And if you are interested in researching yourself any of this, like I said, I'll have the sources that I used linked down in the description if you want to check those out. And guys, I hope you'll subscribe and stick around to see my other content, because I'm passionate about this and I'm not going anywhere. I'm absolutely going to continue on this journey. I feel incredibly led towards helping people with this, and there will be many, many more videos to come where I teach you how to make things from scratch, dinners from scratch, items from the grocery store from scratch, growing a lot of things yourself in your own backyard. And I hope that I can bless you with that knowledge and that confidence. So thank you so much for listening and for hanging out with me today, and I will see you next time. Be blessed, my friends. Bye.